Okay, good morning, or afternoon or evening, everyone. Welcome to talk on culture, the journey to a learning organisation. This is me, David Leach, enterprise coach with Volkswagen Financial Services. Today, just going to share a few stories and experiences with what we're trying to do and what we're learning within Volkswagen Financial Services and our culture and our ways of working. I'll come on to the Innovation Live later on. This is something that we did internally. Again, just trying to embed some new ways of working and get people to think a little bit differently. So appreciate this is not live, but there is a QR code to scan. So I would really appreciate people's feedback. Question just to get you thinking is, what does a learning organisation mean to you? So if you scan the QR code, again, do that at your leisure, or go to slido.com and use code 40052. There's a question to answer in there. There's also a Q&A section. So people would like to get in touch. If there's anything he'd like to discuss in more detail, then please do get in contact. So part of what we've been doing to think a little bit differently, to encourage people to learn and to share and to experiment, is to talk about things as outcomes and hypothesis statements. So again, rather than solutions and requirements, we're trying to focus on the customer, trying to embrace the fact that things are sometimes uncertain. And so we're trying to talk in this hypothesis format. So during COVID-19, we've been challenged to do things far quicker than ever before. Being a financial services organisation, working with the FCA and other regulators, the heavily regulated environment means we've got quite a lot of governance, quite a lot of process. And during the COVID-19 crisis, we've been asked to deliver things quicker than ever before. So payment holidays, payment deferrals, as an example. We've done that in a number of weeks rather than sometimes months or years to deliver some of these solutions. So it's really challenged our thinking around what parts of our process is actually critical to what we do. What's our risk appetite? How do we work together and collaborate and those sorts of things? And so that's led us on to which parts of how we've worked in the last 6 months are sustainable, and how can we make sure that that just becomes part of what we do, part of our culture. So we have this hypothesis that by putting the customers at the heart of what we do, by removing some of that unnecessary bureaucracy, by empowering our teams to make decisions and to streamline processes, that we are going to be much more capable of delivering against our strategic aims at a faster pace, and able to adapt and react far more than we ever have before. Within the hypothesis statement, we've got some themes around people, culture, and process efficiency, which I will come on to. But really starting with the hypothesis statement, really trying to get our teams to understand the intent behind what we're doing and engage them in the measures of success and some of the activity, because it's really us as a collaborative organisation, that will determine exactly what we do and how we'll know when we are successful. So just to come on to what a learning organisation is defined as, it's an organisation that's skilled at creating, acquiring, transferring knowledge and modifying its behaviour based on new knowledge and insights. I think it gets us thinking around, our culture is evolving, our industry is changing. We are trying to embrace digital solutions and put the customer at the heart of what we do. And part of being able to do that is understanding that we do have to learn new things. We do have to adapt and react. And so really starting to encourage all of our teams to think about what value means to a customer, to think about how we can improve the way we do things for our customers. The characteristics of that learning organisation across environment, processes, practices, and leadership. Again, we're thinking about within our teams how we become more hypothesis driven and how we support teams to understand how to create a hypothesis. So that hypothesis driven development, and I'll describe later on some of the ways we've done that. We are trying some culture hacks in our teams. So we are encouraging people to go for a walk when they have some of their meetings, to end meetings earlier if they can, to have clear actions. Again, I'll come on to some of those things, but small things that we can all do that help us to think a little bit more and to change our behaviour, to have this culture that's more open to hypothesizing, learning, having more time to think. So there's also an important role here for leadership. We have a solid leadership and transformation program that's trying to encourage our leaders to be role models. So what are the things that they can do day to day in their own behaviour, their own activities, that really show teams that there is a different way to think, a different way to act, a different way to behave that could drive better results for our teams, for our colleagues, for our customers. The learning environment at the top, again, it's easy to say some of these things, but this needs to be in a safe environment. So I'll come on to our guiding principles and our values, but again, we're looking at trust, safety, and behaviour in all of our teams. So again, some important things in here that they're easy to say, but I'll go through some of the examples of what we're doing. So the foundations to all of this, we are talking more around how we're experimenting. We don't know everything at the start. We're learning together. Some things we'll get right, some things we'll learn from if they don't go as we expected. But it's about learning and it's about improving together. I think some of our teams will quickly notice that we almost antagonize them a little bit because we're encouraging all of these new things that we could do, but they just don't have the time. So again, with those culture hacks, again, working with some of our leaders and some of our managers, we really need to be thinking about how we create time for our teams to be able to do this thinking and this learning and this sharing. And even if it is just a few minutes a day, let's try and get that. Let's try and make some of our processes more efficient. Let's automate some of the manual work that we do. And let's try and keep our meetings as short as possible with clear actions. Just some things that we can all do that maybe gets us a few minutes back each day. And then we're not back to back all day and we've got some time to learn something, to share something, to encourage this learning environment that we're looking for. So I mentioned our values and principles earlier. We've got what I feel is a fairly solid set of principles, so our guiding principles, again, that talks around that our customer is at the heart of what we do. We need feedback from our customers. We want to be delivering value for our customers, understand their needs. We are looking for people to take responsibility, but to do that, we need people to have courage to try new things, to have that enthusiasm, that if things don't go right the first time that we learn. And as I say, all of that is underpinned by trust. The first time something doesn't go as we planned, if we react negatively to that, then that's not going to embed that trust. So again, it's for all of us to understand that we are learning, we are trying new things, and sometimes part of that is some things don't go as we plan. So we all need to be a bit more conscious around how we behave with each other. It's really, really easy for us to say some of these things. So really easy for us to say, be accountable, be autonomous, make decisions. A lot of us have worked in this organization for a long time or other organizations, other cultures. And so sometimes it's good to make some of these things conscious, how we don't want people to behave within this learning organization, this culture. So we don't want to blame others. We don't want to be late to meetings. We don't want to put up with an inefficient process. We don't want to be stopped from collaborating with others because we're not at a certain place in the hierarchy. We don't want to tolerate inappropriate behavior. All these things probably seem obvious, but we want to make it conscious for all of our teams across the organization, across the enterprise, that we want to behave in a certain way. So make the way that we don't a bit more conscious. So inclusion, diversity, and safety. I think now more importantly than ever, we need to make sure that people feel included and they feel psychologically safe. So we are consciously looking at psychological safety. We're discussing it. We're trying to assess it within our teams. We have Together for Integrity ambassadors and Together for Integrity workshops, again, around behavior, how we treat each other. We're having creative coffee theme sessions, and we're talking a lot around some important issues like Black Lives Matter. Again, sharing our stories, sharing how we're feeling and how we can improve. And pace and flexibility and work from anywhere. So again, really putting some initiatives, some thought behind the future of the organization and what that means for teams, how we focus on customers, how we collaborate, the technology that we use. So some really important topics in here that leads us to that place where we talk more around teams being autonomous, accountable, us being efficient, but again, all within trust, a trusted environment. So the hypothesis statements that I alluded to at the beginning, we talk about leading and lagging measures of success. Now, a leading indicator is giving us that confidence that we're on the right path. Are people feeling as if they can make decisions? Are they escalating as much as they were? Some of our lagging data that we have is through our annual engagement survey called STEBAM. So Volkswagen has a global engagement survey. And there are some areas in there where we index lower than we'd like, but we think this evolution of our culture, this move to a learning organization will certainly help. And so it's important to align all of the initiatives across the business. And from an HR perspective, we don't want an engagement survey just to be an HR thing. This is to show how we're improving as an organization and the areas where we can get better. So again, it's important to tie all of these measures together from across the organization. I talk about decision making. Again, really easy to say. Everyone's empowered to be able to make decisions all of the time. Can people make decisions? Do they have the data available to them? We don't just want gut feel across the organization. We want to be as data driven as possible. And so again, we're thinking around, you may have seen this diagram before, it's from a gentleman called Henrik Nyberg at Spotify, the importance of teams being aligned. So understanding the strategy. So at the moment, we're going through a process of re-socializing our organizational outcomes for the next 3 to 5 years. And teams can then make sure that their quarterly outcomes are aligned to that strategic intent. The measures of success are understood, and so we can confidently make decisions in our teams and ensure that we're all aligned to the same outcomes. So bringing in community to practice. So talk a little bit more now. We understand the intent from a cultural process efficiency perspective. We're encouraging everyone across the organization to experiment with how they work and how they work together. But now looking at communities of practice, how we can embrace those a little bit more. So, these aren't mandatory things. We want people to come together, shared purpose, and to learn together. So I'll just talk a little bit around some of the communities that we've started. So the hypothesis statements that I mentioned at the beginning, we had a cross-functional group outside of lockdown, came into our head office and really dug into the words behind some of these hypothesis statements. What do those words mean? And how can we make sure that they have meaning to our teams and the measures of success are understood and correct? So again, collaborating around the outcome and the hypothesis statement before any activity starts, hoping again that engagement will be high behind the intent of what we're trying to do. We're also lucky enough to form a cross-functional group, working with a gentleman called Barry O'Reilly. And again, really lucky. We had engagement from risk, sales, marketing, digital. We had several members from different parts of IT, risk, HR, and a cross-functional team came together for 1 hour a week to spend time with Barry, learning a module, so measuring success, prioritization, how to write a roadmap, how to scale some of these ways of working, how to fund change. Then we'd go away and we'd have a community that met twice a week, and we would talk about what I took from that, what I understood, what I could try, what I could learn. And again, everyone's at a different place in the journey. For some, they've done road mapping before, they understand their prioritization approach, they understand risk management. And to other parts of the business, they don't do any of that yet. So it's really good for people to pair up that are at different stages in the journey and share what they learn and share their context. So putting that theory that we gained into practice, some of these things, again, they sound a little bit trivial, but different people in the organization are on a different journey. Some people haven't looked at their ways of working much before. They haven't made lots of changes before and certainly not been encouraged to experiment. This is our governance team, their first time with visual management, so a Kanban board in Jira, and they're starting to put their work items into a to-do list, to talk as a team around what the priority is, to allocate work, and then to meet every day to talk about who's working on what, how they can help each other, who the customer is, and then reflecting on how they can improve to meet those needs quicker. And again, they've not done that before. So, simple visual management that starts to encourage some different behaviors in those teams. From a roadmap perspective, again, typically our roadmaps would be left to right with dates at the top, and we'd be trying to commit to certain features at certain times. Whilst that's still important, we need to manage expectations. We're also, from a roadmap perspective, trying to look at the outcomes that we have. So from a customer's perspective, what are the outcomes that we're trying to meet? And then how do we visualize that in a different way to encourage different conversations? So again, a bit of an experiment. The teams are feeding back to the community on how those conversations are going. For some of our more complex programs that have traditionally been in Excel spreadsheets, again, we're just experimenting with different ways to visualize quite complex dependencies, risks between the teams. And again, for some stakeholders, not sure how to take this. For others, love it. But again, take that feedback, learn together. It's all about changing behavior and encouraging different collaboration, stronger collaboration. For some of the teams, onto a few more advanced topics, cost of delay as an example. So we may understand for the quarter the outcomes that we're trying to meet. It then becomes a question of how we sequence and prioritize those, or prioritize and sequence those outcomes. So cost of delay, or COD3, cost of delay divided by duration. It just gives us a different view on the data that we have. So if we commenced all outcomes at once, if we tried the one with the least effort first, if we did the most valuable first based on a cost of delay, or we looked at the cost of delay divided by the duration, what view does that give us, and how should we sequence the work? So again, experimenting, it gets the teams talking about what cost of delay is, what value is to the customer, how we work out value, what value means. For some of our teams that are looking at a brand new value proposition, what they understand as value, what they're learning something, and validating hypothesis statements with the customer is different to a legacy product. We're trying to keep the lights on, and it's about uptime and those sorts of things. So again, it's encouraging collaboration, it's encouraging conversation, and the community coming together with these problems and sharing what they learn. For our architects, again, looking at how they work with different parts of the business and how they're contributing to the value created for the customer rather than working in silos. For their engagement, currently 51 days, they're 21.6% efficient, which is quite alarming for them. So again, it's a good realization. It's a good conversation with the team and the stakeholders on the activity they undertake, the effort that's involved, and just the waiting and the waste that occurs. So they're now working with their wider team and their stakeholders on improvements they can make to reduce that or increase that efficiency score. So again, it's the collaboration, it's the behaviours that we're encouraging that helps that culture. It has been tricky. I say sometimes you can get a group of people together, have a really good community of practice, and then a couple of weeks later you don't get as many people attend. Other people have other things going on. Sometimes they don't always have the time to experiment and to share. And also, at times you feel a bit disheartened by that. But Emily Webber shared this screen previously in previous talks, and I think that made me feel a little bit better that we've seen the potential. That's why we had such good engagement for that ways of working session with Barry. We've come up with some good things, and then we've dipped slightly. So it's for me and others with the group to put a little bit more input into that, to sort of re-articulate the purpose and the problems we're solving with that group, and again hopefully start to mature. But keep trying. Sometimes the intent's understood, but people just don't have the time. Sometimes it doesn't hurt just to reinforce the purpose of what we're doing. So, as I say, we're trying to hypothesize around culture and process efficiency. We're trying things like culture hacks to get people to try things, to get people to give tangible examples of what they're doing. It's behavior, it's collaboration. But everything I talk about, I'm talking about the wider enterprise, and this stuff is difficult to keep a big organization engaged in what we're doing. And so it's really working with our communications team and looking at the different channels we have. And now more than ever, most people working remotely, it's trying to use the right communication tool at the right time to deliver a message, and that message won't land with everybody. So again, we're hypothesizing and we're learning with the way that we communicate as well. And we had an innovation live, which I mentioned at the beginning. That was my opportunity to talk to the organization around some of the messages when we talk about behavior and we talk about learning and we talk about culture. What do these things mean to people day to day? And I think that one of the initial messages we were trying to land was that multitasking and context switching, are we doing it? We probably all are without knowing it, and it's detrimental to our mental health, it's detrimental to our productivity. And so can everybody just have a look at, if I am working on 3 things at the moment, should I be? Do I know which one's the priority? Do I know the value I'm actually delivering for customers? Just to get people to just take that time just to reflect and have a little bit of a think about the value I'm delivering and whether I can avoid context switching. We also talked about resource efficiency and flow efficiency. Again, we're probably guilty, like a lot of organizations and teams, of trying to keep everybody busy. Now, resource efficiency, if you keep everybody busy, as we've just seen with the architects, all the architects are busy, but we're 21.9% efficient. If you focus on flow efficiency, so that's how quickly can we understand and deliver value for customers and keep delivering that value for customers and becoming more effective, more productive and delivering value sooner, then you might find that people in your teams aren't 100% utilized. They're not busy all the time. And then it becomes a conversation around, well, what other valuable things could we be doing if we had time? And typically it's helping to understand the value of what's coming next. It's talking to customers, it's getting feedback from customers to inform and iterate and adapt on the things that you're currently doing. It's learning new skills. It's helping each other if another person is busy. So again, we're trying to think in all of our teams, what are we currently focused on? Is it just being busy, or is it actually delivering value for customers? From a behavior point of view, this was inspired by Tesco Bank, which again, we're trying to show people, a bit like the Agile Manifesto, things on the left and things on the right. We would like to be looking at things on the left if possible. Again, some of these things are obvious, but different teams are at a different part of the journey. So, we want things to be cross-functional. We want empowered decision-making. We want transparency through using data. So we just want to start to reinforce what this tangibly means to people day to day. We're starting to look at something a bit more visual, maybe something like cartoons. If you look at learning on the left, we've told a lot of our operational teams that one day they'll be replaced by robots. Again, whilst that's true, what do people need to learn? What skills and capabilities do we need for the future? Because the people aren't redundant. We've got some very talented people. The roles will be, because the work rightly should be automated because it's not driving high value for customers. But again, getting to a place where the community helps to drive, well, what skills do we need in the business and how can we support people to learn? How can we have coaches and mentors for people? and aligned to our strategic workforce planning. So some really important stuff that we're going to need to do next year and beyond to embed this learning organisation and supported by these communities of practice. Through our newsletter that we send out every week, again, different messages. We've tried the Pomodoro technique in our training, so it's focused time boxes of learning. We've looked at people's working environments, try to make it feel a little bit more real, a little bit more human for people. We're sharing the culture hacks that people are doing, where people have gone for a walk and have taken photos. Again, you know, people are in different situations at the moment. This is a really difficult year. We want to drive the right culture, keep things moving along, and just share as much as we possibly can about what we're doing. Measuring success. So again, these hypothesis statements, working with the communities, working with a cross-functional group to make sure we understand the measures. So when we talk about decision making, the way we're going to start to measure that is reduce number of escalations, reducing the time to deliver value to customers, employee engagement going up. So there's a number of measures that we need to look at, some leading, some lagging, to give us that confidence that whilst we've said we want more decision making in our teams, is that actually happening? We're starting to make sure that we've got key measures for each of our themes. If for some of them we have the data, we have the current measure, and we'll set a target. For some, we need to go and get the data, quantitative and qualitative, a bit of a mixture. But again, go get the data and align it to the actions that we're taking. So just to close, this stuff is difficult. Sometimes it's not immediately obvious and tangible. Be collaborative as possible. When we talk about learning and experimenting, try and have a hypothesis for everything we do, whether it's the intangible cultural stuff, whether it's the process efficiency or anything else. You know, don't be afraid to talk about hypothesis, talk about learning, talk about leading and lagging measures, and you know, role model as much as you can. Try something and share it. It's all about sharing, whether something goes well or not. So yeah, just one final thing. There's a Slido, a QR code. If you've got any questions, please let me know. Appreciate I've been through quite a lot of content quite quickly, and just, you know, help your teams find some time each week. What do these things mean to people in the teams? It's so easy to use some of these words around autonomy, empowerment, decision making. What does it mean to people day to day? I mean, most people will know what they need to do. It's just having the time to do it. So help them prioritize and help them become better. Thank you very much.